The first Community Association Board is formed sometime before the first lot is sold in a new community. Typically, the developer or a project investor/owner files articles of incorporation with the Georgia Secretary of State to create a governing body that manages the community neighborhood. The person completing the initial corporation paperwork will normally appoint original board members and record the covenant documents in the County Land Records Office. The first Community Association Board is often a small group of people, perhaps 3 to 5 people, from the declarant's family or employees. In Georgia, specific state laws govern when a developer-appointed board must turn over the reins to a condominium community elected board. The original board will manage the association until the earliest of a voluntary surrender of management privileges by declarant, or 3 years after recording the declaration for a typical condominium corporation, or 7 years for an expandable corporation where new property may be added, or 80% of the undivided interest in common area property/elements have been sold. While the turnover transition process can be quite complicated, the turnover is really simple. Schedule a meeting, hold an election, done. The community corporation sends notice to property owners that a turnover meeting is scheduled after the board chooses a date, time, and place of meeting, decides whether they plan to call a special or annual meeting, solicits nomination if bylaws mandate nomination prior to meeting, establish terms of office for newly elected board members/directors, determines the number of officers to be elected at the owner's meeting. Some declarants prefer a special meeting because they can limit the meeting discussion to creating a new board through the election process, eliminating any negative comments about current management or problems within the community at large. Before we talk about the transition challenges, let's back up a minute and talk about the terms of office for directors. Whether an association has 3 officers, 5, or 15, it is preferable to establish staggered term lengths. This strategy usually ensures both continuity and a regular infusion of fresh ideas and diverse thought. If some board members are elected in even-numbered years after the turnover transitions, and others are elected in odd-numbered years, there will always be some officers with at least 1 year's experience serving on the community board. But let's say the board has 7 officers, and 3 positions are subject to election every 2 years, while the other 4 positions are elected every 4 years. This scenario would mean that all positions come up for re-election every 4 years. It is possible, although not likely, for all officers to be newly elected every 4 years. Georgia's law does not dictate for officers to come from the board member pool. Also, directors may all be outsiders, so to speak, unless bylaws specifically prevent non-board members from being officers. The typical association officer term in Georgia is 1 year. Since many elected board members are non-paid volunteers and may or may not have related business experience, this continuous turnover could lead to inefficiencies as new board members learn the rules, regulations, and nuances of running a nonprofit corporation. The typical board may have a president who presides over all association meetings, sets the meeting agendas, appoints special committees, and signs most legal documents. A vice president who assumes presidential duties when a president resigns, is recalled, or cannot perform for any other reason. A secretary, and assistants as needed, who maintains all books and records for the community, although state statutes don't define books or records, so these files may or may not include organizational records as well as financial transaction documents. The secretary is usually responsible for internal and external communication, such as sending written notice of upcoming meetings, community events, and assessments. A treasurer, and assistants as needed, who maintains budgets, files annual tax returns, confirms or makes payments for utility bills, federal, state, and local taxes, insurance, and other operating expenses. The treasurer may provide financial statements to owners quarterly or annually. Other positions described in community bylaws or created by the board. For example, some association boards have a human resource officer or security director on the board. Boards and brokers may also delegate duties to a community association manager, CAM. Some common administrative tasks that CAMs assume include paying association bills, sending meeting notices via email, paper mail, text, telephone call, or other communication channel, taking meeting notes, maintaining common area elements and property, managing social media and website platforms, depositing payments received, collecting assessments in person, online, or through physical drop boxes. Paying board members for services. Compensation is optional for nonprofit corporation board members. The Nonprofit Corp Codes state that waiving payment for services does not allow a director to waive responsibility or liability. Covenants typically cover who shall and shall not receive compensation for services, and bylaws can be changed with an association membership vote of approval. However, these general guidelines are commonly applied in Georgia. Federal tax law requires associations issue a 1099 to all board members with a taxable benefit of $600 or more, the same way that a for-profit corporation would handle outside vendor and independent contractor payments. Community associations rarely, if ever, waive association dues or assessments for board members. Paid board members should never be paid in cash or in kind, only via association check. For example, it would not be proper to waive monthly HOA dues in exchange for serving on a committee. If an association desires to pay board members, and the bylaws prevent this action, bring the matter up before the membership in a special assigned meeting or annual meeting. Covenants and bylaws can be usually changed with a majority member vote. Removing and/or replacing board members. Standard nonprofit corporate code allows directors singularly or collectively be removed with or without cause by a simple majority vote of membership during a meeting called specifically for removal. Formal notice must state the sole purpose of the meeting and whether the vote is for a particular director or the entire board. Unless otherwise stated in current bylaws, a board-elected director to fill a vacancy can be removed for cause by the board. Members can vote to remove a replacement director with or without cause. A positive member vote of corporation membership can fill a vacancy on the board. A new director may be approved by a majority of the board of directors to fill a vacancy. As an example, the bylaws state any director may be removed from the board for missing 3 consecutive meetings. The other directors could vote to remove that director for cause immediately after the 3rd meeting was missed, and vote on a replacement even if there was not a quorum. Members, on the other hand, could vote to remove the director after the second meeting missed, because the membership is allowed to remove directors with or without cause. The members could then vote to fill the board vacancy if they had an appropriate nomination. As we wrap up, let's talk about a unique challenge for associations: the issue of majority rules. Achieving a quorum is often difficult. While the GCA and POA rules are silent on board voting and quorum standards, the Corporate Code for Condominium, Property Owner Association, and HOA organizations is taken from Section 14.3.824 of the Georgia Code. 14.3.824 states, quote, "No action permitted unless quorum is present at time of vote. Unless the legal documents specify otherwise, the affirmative vote of a majority of the directors present when a vote is taken is the act of the board of directors as long as a quorum is present." End quote. Association bylaws may state a particular number of board members and/or homeowners must be present to hold certain votes, or the covenant documents may be silent. A majority is based on the votes cast, not the body. For example, if there are 13 directors and 9 are present, there is probably a quorum, since 7 would be enough to satisfy the simple majority rule. However, only 5 votes would be needed to take action, since 5 is the lowest vote count necessary to demonstrate a majority opinion when 9 people are present.